All right, let's dive into a real ecological detective story. We're heading to the heart of South Africa's famous Kruger National Park for a mystery that honestly is just baffling. It all starts with the sudden and very strange disappearance of one of the park's most incredible animals, the Roan antelope. So picture this. It's 1986. The Roan antelope population inside Kruger is doing great. We're talking about 450 of them, which, at the time, was one of the most secure, healthy populations in all of southern Africa. Everything seemed perfect.
And then, boom. Fast forward just 17 years to 2003, and the whole picture has changed. It's terrifying. The population has absolutely collapsed, down to just 25 free-ranging animals. That's a drop of over 90%. The species was suddenly right on the brink of being wiped out from the park completely.
So, the big question is, where did they all go? How could one of the continent's safest antelope populations just vanish like that? This isn't just some sad story. It's a genuine scientific puzzle that sent researchers scrambling for an answer. And that answer? Well, it turned out to be way more complicated than anyone could have possibly imagined.
So the investigation kicked off, and naturally, the first thing they did was round up the usual suspects. You know, whenever a wildlife population crashes this hard, ecologists have a kind of standard checklist of things to investigate first.
Suspect number one on that list was drought. This seemed like a total slam dunk. The late 80s and early 90s had these absolutely brutal droughts that just ravaged the landscape. It felt like an open and shut case. No rain means no grass, which means no antelope. Simple, right?
Well, this is where the mystery really starts to get interesting. The drought definitely didn't help things, for sure, but it wasn't the primary killer. And the key piece of evidence that proved it? When the rains finally came back and the grasslands were covered, the roan population didn't. In fact, it just kept on dropping. Something else, something much bigger, was going on.
Okay, so if drought's off the table, what's next? Well, suspect number 2 had to be disease. And the prime candidate here was anthrax, this really nasty bacterial disease that was known to cause massive die-offs in the park.
But again, the evidence just didn't line up. I mean, look at the timeline. Park officials knew all about anthrax. They'd even been running this huge vaccination program for the roan for years, right up until 1992. But the critical thing is, when scientists went back and looked at the records, there were no major anthrax deaths reported during the years the population was crashing. So, another dead end.
So with the usual suspects cleared, the investigation took a really surprising turn. The focus shifted to a clue nobody expected, a big park management project that was designed with the best of intentions, a project meant to help animals, not hurt them.
It was called the Water for Game Project. Back in the 70s, the park installed dozens and dozens of these artificial water holes, pumping water from boreholes all across the really dry northern parts of the park. And, you know, the idea behind it was great. Give animals water year-round, open up new areas for them to graze, and protect them from droughts. Seemed like a win-win for everybody.
But here's the thing. Someone did see a problem coming. Way back in the 70s, an ecologist named Solomon Joubert wrote this warning, and it's just chilling to read today. He basically predicted that adding all this water would attract huge herds of animals like zebra and wildebeest, and that the overcrowding would be disastrous for the shy, reclusive roan. His warning, sadly, was ignored. And this, right here, is the key to the whole puzzle. It turns out, the water holes didn't kill the roan directly. What they did was set off this completely unforeseen and catastrophic chain reaction. It's what you might call a predator's paradox.
Okay, so let's break down exactly how this ecological cascade happened, step by step. First, the new water holes provide water all year long. That brings in massive herds of zebra and wildebeest, animals that need a lot of water. And they don't just visit, they move in for good. Step 3, where the prey goes, the predators are sure to follow. The lion population, with this new year-round buffet, absolutely exploded. It doubled. And that led to the final, fatal step for our roan antelope. They suddenly lost their safe haven, the very thing that kept them alive.
And this chart just lays it out so perfectly. It's a deadly swap. You can see as the numbers of zebra and their main predator, lions, skyrocketed in this part of the park, the roan population just went into a complete nosedive. It's a perfect, tragic, inverse relationship.
So, here's the absolute bottom line, the thing you have to understand to get this whole story. The roan's entire survival strategy was turned completely on its head. Their specialty wasn't just eating certain types of grass. Their real specialty was avoiding lions.
They survived by living in these harsh, dry places because there wasn't enough water for big herds of other animals, and therefore not enough food for lions. By improving the landscape, park management accidentally destroyed the roan's only real defense.
So, case closed, right? The riddle was solved. Well, not exactly, because the story doesn't end there. See, understanding the problem was one thing, but fixing it? That turned out to be a whole other, much tougher challenge.
So, knowing what they knew now, the park managers did the only logical thing. Starting in 1994, they began a program to shut down all those artificial water holes. The hope was to basically turn back the clock, to try and restore those natural, dry conditions that the Roan needed to thrive.
But just look at this timeline. It's brutal. They started closing the water holes in '94, but the Roan population kept right on falling, hitting that rock bottom of just 25 animals in 2003. And now, today, the numbers aren't falling anymore, which is good, but they haven't recovered either. They're just stuck, stagnant, at this dangerously low level. The ecosystem had been pushed past some kind of tipping point, and it just wasn't bouncing back.
Okay, so it all sounds pretty bleak, I know. But the story isn't over, and there are some real glimmers of hope. This whole struggle to save the Roan has actually led to some incredible new insights and strategies that could point the way forward, not just for this one species, but for conservation all over the world.
And if you need a smoking gun, this is it. Researchers did this amazing experiment where they put just 7 roan inside a huge enclosure where they were totally safe from lions. The results were just astounding. While the wild population was stuck at around 25 animals, this tiny, protected group exploded. It grew by 25% per year. It was the ultimate proof. Take the lions out of the equation, and the roan can absolutely thrive.
But maybe the biggest hope of all isn't inside Kruger. It's just next door, across the border in Mozambique's Limpopo National Park. This is a huge, wild landscape, exactly the kind of pristine, low-predator habitat that the roan originally evolved to live in. It's like a natural sanctuary. And the early signs there are just incredibly encouraging. Sable antelope, which is another rare species that struggled in Kruger, have more than doubled their numbers over there. And a small group of 6 roan that were reintroduced are doing great. They're healthy, and get this, they've already been spotted with 2 new babies. It just goes to show you, if you give them the right habitat, recovery is absolutely possible.
Which really leaves us with this final big question. The story of the Roan is this powerful and frankly painful lesson about unintended consequences. It teaches us that sometimes the most helpful thing we humans can do for nature is to just step back. To save a species that's on the edge, maybe our focus shouldn't be on clever little interventions, but on something much bigger, restoring the wild, untamed sanctuaries they need to save themselves.